Hello everyone, this is part 28 of What If Naruto and Hinata trained together and a spark happened, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The Two-Tails cat demon looked like the incarnation of deadly grace to the Leaf Ninjas. Her gigantic form was sleek and toned like a panther, muscles rippling under her skin with every movement. White-hot flames flickered and pulsed across her soft blue fur. Her 3-foot-long claws dug into the stone floor of the ravine like it was soft dirt. The feline's fangs were longer than Neji was tall, perfectly straight, painfully sharp, and completely unmarked. Her deep yellow eyes watched them, her slitted pupils almost a vertical line in the brightness of the floodlights. At the same time, her ears swiveled around, searching for the sounds of any creature she might not be able to see. The expression on her face was incomprehensible to the teens, but her posture seemed to be completely at ease. Her hackles were not raised and her twin tails hung flaccid behind her. The Two-Tails cat took a deep breath, blue flames shimmering in the corners of her mouth. After filling her lungs, she spit out a cone of cyan fire at the four-leaf shinobi. The teenage warriors scattered to avoid the inferno. Hinata activated her improved Byakugan, and both she and Neji studied the demon's chakra. The four ninjas spread out as they had been trained, knowing that if they separated, at least they could divide the monster's attention, and prevent her from attacking more than one of them at a time. But as soon as they were out of the path of her attack, the feline stopped as if confused. After a few instants of consideration, the cat turned to her left, following Hinata and Tenten. The weapons expert was already signing when the demon's jaws opened again. Hinata, get clear, she advised, before finishing, Doton, rock slide jutsu. The walls of the canyon on either side of the young woman broke apart, and tumbled towards the creature. The cat demon continued her clockwise rotation another half step, and breathed fire on the stones rumbling forward on Tenten's right. The inferno nearly caught the human, and fused the rocks together. But the boulders on the other side of Guy's student continued unimpeded, crashing into the demon's face and front left leg. Hinata, having taken her friend's warning, continued to observe the creature through her silver eyes. To the monster's rear, Neji completed his own technique, incanting, water style, extinguishing deluge jutsu. A column of water erupted from the male Jonan's hands, expanding into a wave that washed over the demon. The flickering embers across the cat's body expired, and between the rocks and the flood, the monster nearly fell over. Sakura charged in, hammering her lightning-charged fists into the feline's right rear leg. The girl's strength, combined with the numbing effect of the Ranshinsho, proved to be enough to knock the demon on her side. Get up, a new voice shouted, kill them. Burn them to ash. Previously hidden behind the Two-Tails was a teenage girl, perhaps 14 or 15 years of age. Her build was balanced, neither slender nor bulky. She wore a hidden snow headband, with a ragged line cut through the insignia. Her pale green eyes stared wrathfully at the Leaf Ninjas. Her hair was a deep shade of pink, bordering on purple, and was done in 5 short, tight braids. Her uniform consisted of a tight, light gray jumpsuit, with a metal plate covering the upper part of her chest. She held a mace loosely in her right hand, and a silver amulet tightly in her left hand. The snow renegade realized she had been spotted, and gripped her weapon more firmly. We meet at last, Sakura Haruno, she announced. Now I can finally pay you back for killing my sister. You must be Mayuko Kakuyoku, the medic realized. You look a lot like your sister. It's too late for flattery, the renegade snorted, and then she noticed the cat demon was lying where she had fallen, licking her stunned leg. What are you waiting for? Mayuko yelled at the demon, hurry up. Kill the male, then the other 2 females. But save that one for last. The cat lurched to her feet, faster than she had been moving before. She jumped towards the wall above Tenten, knocking the human aside almost gently with one of her tails, and then rebounded at Neji, her teeth spread wide enough to consume him in one bite. 8 trigrams, empty palm, Hinata struck the demon's neck, diverting her away from Neji. The Hyuga heiress caught onto the feline's hair, and began jabbing her fingers into the monster's chakra points. No. Burn her off. Stop the other one. Hinata jumped clear as the cat's coat ignited again. Tenten had been charging towards the Akatsuki ring candidate, but the demon hissed and plume of steam cut off Guy's female apprentice. Hinata's eyes narrowed as she considered the scene. Naruto slumped up against the wall, defeated. He had been stalking around the sewer outside the fox's prison, still riled up by the battle and by the Kyuubi's last barb. He could tell that the demon was still withholding her power, and he thought if she would just give it to him, he would be able to kick his healing powers up to a level where he could overcome the drug keeping him unconscious. He argued the point with the spirit, but she ignored him. After almost 20 minutes of pacing and trying to convince his tenant, he gave up and decided to rest. "Let me ask you something," she said suddenly, a few minutes later. There was an odd timbre to her voice, and he squinted at her curiously. When he did not deny her, she continued. "Pretend Orochimaru had captured you," she posited, "and was going to make you his new host. But you had a way to kill yourself, and destroy his hideout in the process. What would you do? Would I kill him, if I do the kamikaze thing?" Naruto asked after some consideration. "You don't know," she told him, "but you will ruin his plans." "Well, if he takes over my body, I'll be dead in 3 years either way," he shrugged, "so it doesn't matter either way." "And if that wasn't the case?" she countered, "what if he had upgraded his possession, and between that and your regeneration, you'll live your full lifespan?" "Well, in that case wouldn't it be better to live?" he suggested. "After all, Hinata or Sakura or Grandma Tsunade might find a way to save me." "Maybe," she agreed, "but it would be 1,000,000 to 1 shot. And not like those books you read, where 1,000,000 to 1 shot is really a 2 to the shot. And in the meantime, the snake would be using your body to do all sorts of things you'd hate. Basically, would you rather die on your own terms, or live as a slave to someone you hate?" she simplified. "That's a heck of a choice," he told her. "I mean, as a ninja I'm prepared to die on a mission, but I still do everything I can to stay alive. But being enslaved by an enemy, that's not much different from being dead. And besides, Orochimaru would probably want to find a way to kill my mind, kinda like you. So who knows how long I'd live." The demon ignored the barb, and watched him closely. Naruto closed his eyes and rubbed his chin in thought. Finally his blue orbs slowly reappeared and he exhaled in decision. "In that case, I'd rather die to try to take down Orochimaru, than let him use me," Naruto told the fox. "Why?" he added, looking confused now that he was no longer focusing on the quandary. "That's what I thought you would say," the fox nodded her head, before turning away from him again. She obviously was talking about herself. Naruto was not totally dense, but how could she hurt the Akatsuki by dying? And for that matter, how could she die? Hinata was thrown into the cliff as she stopped the cat's razor-sharp claws with Ginmaki. The demon's other forepaw collided with Sakura, but the powerful medic accepted some minor burns to catch the limb and force the monstrous feline back. Both the cat and her controller's eyes widened at Sakura's show of strength. Neji hurried over to his cousin, while Tenten darted around the demon towards Mayuko again. The snow rogue barked another order, and the cat's tail slammed into the ground, nearly knocking the weapon mistress down, and blocking her path. "Are you all right?" Neji asked Hinata quickly, helping her stand. "I am not in any danger," she answered, "just some bruises and a cracked rib." "Wait here," he told her, "I will get Sakura." "No," she shook her head, "you need to keep distracting the cat. I have another idea." Hinata quickly summoned her familiars. She dispatched Sol to fetch Sakura, and Lune to help keep the feline's attention. Neji nodded to her, and then followed the male squirrel. Hinata returned to observing the battle as she clutched her injured side. She had downplayed the damage she had taken from hitting the rocky wall, and she knew that Neji could see just as well with his Byakugan. But she felt there was something else going on here, and she wanted the chance to observe from a distance for a few moments. Lune darted in, unnoticed by the demon or her handler, at least until he drew a kunai-shaped short sword from under his sash, and stabbed the cat in the paw. The feline yelped, more from surprise than pain, and she turned to look at the new annoyance. But the black squirrel was already scampering away, and his action gave Neji an opening to hit the cat with another water jutsu, dousing the monster's flaming fur once more. Sol reached Sakura at that point, whispering her message to the medic, before drawing her own blade and joining the fray. Mayuko continued to bark orders at the cat, while Tenten remained intent on reaching the demon's mistress. Like fighting the porcupine, Sakura noted, as she began to knit Hinata's injured bone, only about 20 times worse. No. Hinata shook her head carefully, so as not to disrupt the jutsu. The two-tails cat is much more dangerous than that, or at least she should be. What do you mean? The medic queried her teammate. With the fires out, Sol was able to climb up the demon's right front leg, and slash at her shoulder. The cat shook the albino squirrel off, and was nearly knocked over again when Neji and Tenten hit her with tandem earth jutsus. It looks like the cat isn't really trying to hurt us, Hinata suggested, sounding slightly dubious of her own assertion. If this is not trying to hurt us, I'd hate to see that demon get serious, Sakura said darkly, moving to the second crack rib that Hinata had tried to conceal. No, she is doing exactly what she is told, and no more, Hinata explained in a whisper, and when she is able, the demon appears to be bending Mayuko's orders to avoid hurting us. Like every time Mayuko orders her to go after Tenten, the cat does so immediately, even if she is in a position to kill one of us. As Hinata offered that, Sakura looked back and was treated to a live example. The cat was preparing to unleash another gout of flame, this time at Hinata's summoned allies. But then Tenten used her shuriken string jutsu, and the hidden snow renegade again yelled for the demon to defend her. The cat stopped her attack, and absorbed the massive blades with her left rear leg, even though she could have blocked while still attempting to barbecue the ninja rodents. Why is the demon doing that? Sakura wondered. I don't know. Maybe whatever process they are using to control her limits her will, Hinata suggested, or maybe she resents the Akatsuki. It doesn't matter much, the healer noted, we're basically at a stalemate right now, but it won't last forever. Eventually the cat will put one of us out of commission, and it will be all downhill from there. That is why we need to find a way to turn this hesitation to our advantage, Hinata noted, watching the cat again. As expected, the Leaf and Sand teams had met in the Land of Forests, and had continued after a short break. Just before nightfall, the allies had rendezvoused with the Mist Shinobi, just north of the Hidden Cloud Village. By 2 hours after midnight on April 22nd, they had reached the entrance to the canyon. The Nine-Tails Fox Demon rose slowly, almost majestically, and walked to the bars of her cell. She sat down, and stared intently at her Jinchuriki. What? Naruto fidgeted, uncomfortable, are you going to attack me again? Unfortunately, that wouldn't work, she said sadly, I haven't been able to figure out a way to prevent you from assuming that hybrid form of yours. Then are you committing my face to memory, before you get stuffed in that ugly statue and become Madara's slave again? I hate you, she told him simply, after a moment of thought, it goes without saying that I detest your species. You should be the servants, the playthings of my kind. Instead, you imprison us in rings, in statues, and in your own bizarre bodies. You spread across this world like a fungus. But you hold a place of honor, she paused in her calm rant, glaring at him, if I could, I would burn your limbs off, centimeter by centimeter. And then I would eat your organs one at a time, until you were begging for death. And once you did, I would let your body regenerate, and start the process over from scratch. And, Naruto tried to sound unimpressed. And despite that, I don't totally despise you, she admitted. Naruto shuddered, wondering what she would want to do to him in that case. You have provided me with amusement, a few interesting experiences, and some annoying yet compelling insight, she informed him. Naruto rubbed his eyes in confusion, he could have sworn the fox looked smaller. You are the best of the 3 Jinchuriki that I have been consigned to, not that that is saying much, she complimented him in a backhand fashion, there are times I think we almost understand each other. So what is the point of all this? Naruto continued to look uncertain. The point is, the fox seemed amused by his naivete, and saddened as well, right now I have to choose between you and Madara. Madara Uchiha, the creature I hate most in this world, the one I despise completely, or Naruto Uzumaki the helpless pup who had kept me trapped for more than 16 years. As things sit now, you could not escape even if I sent you all of my power, she answered his earlier inquiry, the jutsu they're using to extract me is altering our perception of time, and the way our powers mix. I have already tried send power to your body, and they increased the dosage of the drug to match. And since you cannot access your body, how much power I can send it is limited. The QB was definitely smaller now, just a shade over 20 feet in length. Then I guess you don't have a choice after all, he noted in resigned defeat. No, there is one way, she shook her head, one way to potentially escape the Akatsuki, and to thwart Madara's desires forever. The demon was shrinking noticeably at that point, she was barely larger than he was. At the same time, Naruto realized he could feel the jutsu drilling through the seal, and the sedatives coursing through his blood. He felt truly clear-headed for the first time since waking up in their mindscape. And then he took a step back in fear as the 5-foot-long fox demon walked cleanly between the bars, her 9 tails twitching nervously. Goodbye, Naruto, she said hatefully yet fondly, I wish you good luck, but only because I don't want this to have been a waste. The demoness crouched down, and then pounced at him. Naruto crossed his arms before his chest to block the expected attack. But instead of colliding with him, the Kyuubi no Kitsune became insubstantial and passed right through him. Naruto felt a new, powerful warmth infuse his chest, even as he spun around to look for the demon. But the spirit was gone, and the sewer faded away, leaving him in an empty, silvery void. Mistress, one of her assistants called out to the lead scientist nervously. The Akatsuki's chakra and jutsu expert was taking a break, and she raised her head to look at the underling. What is it? She asked grumpily. The answer she received was full of fear and confusion. The seal is gone. Red Eyes, touched by triplicate Black Tomo, watched with sadistic delight. The 3-leaf and 2 sand ninjas hopped and dodged frantically around the valley below, while the one-tailed tanuki lashed out at them with sadistic joy. Still cloaked in the form of Sasuke Uchiha, Orochimaru watched the desperate struggle from the cliff far above, unhindered by the lingering jutsu that prevented most shinobi from adhering to the rock with their chakra. Of course, he was the one who had created the technique, during his tenure with the Akatsuki, so he knew how to bypass it. The body thief took a few steps closer, making sure to stay outside the glow of the floodlights. The Sharingan did not have the same distance as the Byakugan, and he wanted to get a first-rate view of the battle. Not good, Shikamaru barely kept his bland tone of voice as he jumped backwards. No, it's very good, little monkey, the sand demon rumbled happily, I thought I'd never get to see my beloved older siblings again, and now here they are. He lifted his right forepaw and pointed it at Temari. A tendril of dust shot towards the young woman, who quickly pulled her fan over her shoulder and blocked the attack. But the sand kept flowing, pressing against her weapon, and starting to wrap around it to grab her. Shikamaru jumped forward, slicing through the sand with a pair of kunai. No longer connected to main body, the one-tailed silicate dropped to the stone below, and the young couple separated and moved back. Kankuro had used the initial exchange to free his 4 puppets from their scroll. He held Black Ant and Salamander close, while sending Crow and Moon out to slash at the demon's other front leg. Though they were able to dislodge a few small lumps of sand, Shukaku just looked down at them with joyful disbelief, and then kicked them back at their controller. You two are the smart ones, the puppeteer shouted at his sister and her boyfriend, as he forced his marionettes back to their feet. What's the plan? Don't look at me, Shikamaru groused in response, you two know more about this monster than we do. What even works on it? I'm guessing earth and lightning jutsus are out of the question. Temari nodded, while Ino barely avoided the tanuki's tail. Choji punched with his enlarged fists, but the sand absorbed the impact almost gently, and Shukaku snorted. He sent out a blade of sand, which the big Chunin rolled away from, however in the process he took a deep cut in his left shoulder. Lightning does nothing, the elder blonde agreed, neither does fire. Earth jutsus can knock off parts of Shukaku if the technique is powerful enough, but it's much easier to do with wind. And a large enough water jutsu can slow him down, but doesn't hurt him. Then what do you suggest? Shikamaru grunted in annoyance. Wind and water attacks until we can escape, she shot back, unless you know a sealing expert. Yeah, 2 of them, the genius smiled ironically, but neither one is here. Wait, why doesn't fire work? Ino asked. She had finished tending to Choji, and the both of them narrowly dodged another giant kick. He's a desert spirit made of sand, Kankuro couldn't keep the touch of mockery from his voice, a little heat doesn't bother him. But what about a lot of heat? The leaf kunoiki countered, both Sakura and Hinata told me that during the sound liberation, Kankuro fought Gaara by fusing his sand into glass, which Gaara couldn't control. Can Shukaku control glass? That could work, Temari admitted, with a hopeful glance at Shikamaru. But her boyfriend didn't share her optimism. Yeah, but where are we going to get enough firepower to fuse this guy solid? He asked. You guys are from the land of fire. Kankuro yelled, aren't your leaders always rambling on about the will of fire? You should know all kinds of fire arts. Not us. Choji shook his head ruefully. Ino and I both know a few minor techniques, but this team is mostly earth style, with some water thrown in. What about you? I'm air, and Kankuro is earth, the elder sister added. We need Kiba or Tenten, Shikamaru complained, or even Shino. Are you done down there? The Bayu asked, and they all suddenly realized he had not been attacking. Because I'd like to get back to killing you now, Shukaku's statement seemed to be directed at the 5 teens, but the monster kept looking back over his shoulder at the wall. Amusing though it was to watch them try to formulate a plan, Orochimaru had a different reason for returning to the Canyon of Dawn. So, reluctantly, he turned his attention away from the fight against the demon, and continued down the valley at a brisk trot. The Leaf Renegade saw a burst of blue fire rise above the edge of the middle passage, and splash of green water flow over the southern ravine, and he shook his head in shocked amusement. The Snake Summoner would not have expected Pain to unleash 3 of the Bayu to guard one base. But there could only be one reason such a large group of leaf and sand ninjas were attacking this fortress. The Akatsuki had finally captured the Nine-Tails Fox. The thought worried him slightly. He wondered how close his old allies were to completing their plans. And then he immediately started run through his mind ways to use this to his advantage. He had already allowed the Leaf to have Itachi's final report on the Akatsuki's movements. Though he wanted the conflict to continue, he could not think of a way it would benefit him to rescue the boy. And killing him was too much of a risk. The demon might escape. Orochimaru passed a few dozen mid-level Akatsuki soldiers, apparently backup in case the invaders escaped the monsters. None of the retrained bandits looked up, confident that no one could bypass that particular defense. I guess they didn't think I would come back, Orochimaru whispered to the soul of Sasuke Uchiha. But the trapped teen did not acknowledge him, and the rogue Sannin returned his attention to his infiltration. The entrance to the citadel was just ahead, and the snake angled downward on the wall until he reached the bottom of the ancient lakebed. He crept along the wall, his skill rendering him invisible to all but the sharpest eyes. Not that anyone was looking in his direction. Outside the massive steel doors was a familiar face. Deidara watched the 3 chasms with a look of annoyed indifference. Orochimaru padded forward, passing within 8 feet of his former ally. He wanted to laugh, wondering how someone with a total lack of stealth and perception ever became an elite ninja. The serpent briefly considered murdering the explosives expert, but decided now was not the time to play. He was there for a reason, and getting discovered this early would only hinder his goal. Instead, he did something else he knew the Akatsuki believed to be impossible. He used the body flicker technique to bypass the door, reappearing inside the entrance hall. The Leaf Traitor brought the floor plan of the building up from his memory, and started plotting the most likely places his target might be. Ino hit him with your best water techniques, and then Temari, tear him apart with your wind, Shikamaru ordered, throwing 3 kunai at the demon. Each knife had a paper bomb around its handle, and the explosions blasted off sections of Shukaku's stomach and left rear leg. It's tickles, the monster tanuki giggled, and his tail swept over the dislodged sand, reabsorbing it. The 2 women quickly began to follow the genius's direction. Ino launched into a string of hand signs, while Temari summoned Kamatari to double her wind power. What about us? Choji asked. Kankuro nodded his agreement for the sentiment. There isn't much we can do right now, Shikamaru told him, defend the girls, and if you have any paper bombs, try to help take him apart. But he also caught Kankuro's eyes, and indicated the Jonin should close ranks. What? The Sand Warrior whispered as they closed ranks around Temari. Sutan, Hand of Waves. Ino completed the technique, and fired a jet of water at the demon. His light brown material absorbed the liquid, turning darker. The leg she hit moved sluggishly, and the lash of sand he sent after the kunoiki in response only scraped Choji's arm slightly when he intercepted it. There is no way the Akatsuki would just turn one of the Bayu loose. The apathetic Chunin answered the puppeteer's question. They have to have some way to prevent the demon from escaping, or maybe even a way to control him. And I'm guessing whoever is holding that leash is close by. While we keep the One-Tails busy, you find his handler. Kankuro nodded with an impressed grin, and darted away from Shukaku's outstretched paw, towards the opposite side of the ravine. Double-cutting whirlwind, the Kazekige's sister proclaimed, as she swung her fan and her weasel familiar swung his scythe. Translucent blades of wind chakra shot towards the lowest of the Bayu, slicing clean through his left front leg. The monster collapsed, but he fell on the disconnected sand, pulling it back into his body and reforming the destroyed limb. Suten, Hand of Waves. Partial Expansion Jutsu. Ino drenched Shukaku again, and Choji hammered the monster down with both enlarged hands. The demon's body pulled in Akamaiki's fists, and started to crush them. The large warrior cancelled his jutsu, returning his limbs to normal size before the demon could render them unusable. Despite his quick action, Choji's fists were moderately injured. This would be a lot more fun if I was at full strength, the demon complained, as he sent spikes of sand after Temari, Shikamaru, and Kamatari. As the wind chakra experts were engaged in crafting another jutsu, Shikamaru had to push Temari out of the way, and then he scooped up Kamatari in his arms as he dove to the side. But the delay cost him, and the Cloud Admirer took a serious hit to his back, stripping skin and muscle nearly to the bone. The shadow user landed in a crouching position, taking the strain to his legs to avoid falling on his damaged back. Shikamaru. Ino shouted. I'm fine, stay there. Keep up the plan, he ordered her, gritting his teeth through the pain. Kamatari hopped down, but looked back at the injured human. Thanks, kid, the weasel offered. Despite being shoved, the sand kunoiki was able to finish her jutsu, and she destroyed the projections that had attacked them, while carving a few furrows into Shukaku's belly. Kankuro darted around the edge of the canyon, until he felt a queasy feeling in the pit of his stomach. It was the miasma of the one-tails, but he was too far from the beast to feel it directly. The middle child turned away from the demon, following the trail in the other direction. But the trail ended at the rock face, and the puppeteer began a jutsu to search for signs of concealment. Before he could complete his technique, a fist appeared from the wall and clocked him in the jaw. Kankuro felt some of his teeth loosen in their sockets as he forced himself back upright. He drew his constructs back for a counterattack, but was too slow. The teen gaped in recognition of the face that emerged from the stones, and was knocked back by a powerful kick. He landed nearly 20 feet away, right next to his sister and her boyfriend. Temari, it's Shima, Kankuro grumbled, forcing himself up on one shoulder to view his attacker. The man appeared to be in his late 20s or early 30s. He had sandy blonde hair, and his navy blue eyes were covered by reinforced goggles. The Akatsuki aspirant wore light robes of tan and brown silk, and his hands were empty. The belt at his waist had a hidden sand shield, marred by the Akatsuki's rough slash through the insignia. Shima took another half step forward, smiling slightly at them. Who? Ino demanded, moving to check on Kankuro, and Shikamaru's back while she was at it. Shima was a jonin from the Sunagakur, Temari explained, but he quit the village, because he refused to accept Gaara as the Kazekige. What a hassle, Shikamaru noted, but now that we've found him, Ino. The young woman looked up from her counterfeit medical examination, creating a loop with her hands and stating, ninja art, mind transfer jutsu. Shima did not even react, and a few moments later Ino cried out in pain and terror. The mentalist healer fell backwards from her crouching position onto her butt. Shikamaru frowned at her for an instant, and then returned his attention to the renegade. Shima was still just far enough outside the floodlight's perimeter that the Nara clan member could not use his shadow techniques. His paramour had no such limitations, however. Wind scythe jutsu, she intoned. But again the sand traitor did not react. The blades of air struck him, and his surface cracked, and some dust blew off of him. But the next instant the cracks sealed, and his appearance was unmarred. I have taken a page from your beloved Kazekige's book, Shima noted. I have a layer of Shukaku's body covering me as armor. Miss Yamanaka's attempt to invade my mind thrust her into the demon's psyche instead. Speaking of me, aren't you forgetting something? The monster Tanuki roared, sending dozens of spears of sand at the closely grouped shinobi. He tapped his fingers on the table. He was not concerned about the battle. Sending out the first 3 Bayu was overkill, even as a show of power. No, he was worried that he had let the persona of Toby slip too far in making the decision. The look Deodara had given him told Madara his, senior, was suspicious. Or more accurately, more suspicious than he had been previously. Still, the bomb artist had always been a borderline liability to the Akatsuki due to his rebellious and destructive nature. His usefulness was limited, and Madara would have been more than happy to remove the firebug. If the 3 replacements he had chosen succeeded, the Akatsuki would be able to absorb the loss of Deidara. Madara could make Mayuko Tobi's partner, in more ways than one, and assign Shima and Daisuke as the 4th team. Despite having worked through his concerns, Madara continued to drum the table. It was the sort of nervous tic Tobi might display when forced to lead a major battle. His acting was rewarded when the door burst open. But instead of a messenger, one of the guards flew backwards into the makeshift command center. He landed on the table, quite dead. Tobi leapt to his feet in surprise, when a familiar face strode through the door. Orochimaru senpai. The masked ninja asked in confusion, upon seeing Sasuke's face, "What are you doing here?" The stolen Sharingan observed him for a moment, and then the invader burst into laughter, Orochimaru's voice issuing from Sasuke's lips. "Is this his last revenge, trying to trick me into confronting you?" Orochimaru asked himself, or was he truly unaware of how close his target was? "I don't know where Madara is," Itachi shuddered in pain, as his brother's hijacked face leaned in close. "If I did, one of us would already be dead." "But you have a suspicion," Orochimaru purred. "I heard your whole conversation with my old friend. You must think you are close, to want to stay undercover at this late stage of the game." The double agent wanted to tell the snake where he could go, and what to do when he got there. But another part of him, the very Uchiha part, wanted revenge against his villainous ancestor at almost any cost. Tobi, Itachi finally relented. He was inducted into the rings with no testing. And Lord Pain tries to hide it, but he always defers to Tobi or agrees with his plans. "I think Tobi is Madara's mole, inserted in our ranks to keep a closer eye on us." "Good boy," Orochimaru congratulated him, "and now as promised, your reward." Amaterasu. "You can drop the act, Madara," Orochimaru said conversationally, "that doesn't fool me. I recognize your movements, especially now." He tapped the left side of his borrowed face right next to his red eye. "You already have the Sharingan active," Madara mocked, dropping the pretense and removing Tobi's spiral mask. "Did you have that much trouble getting here?" "Oh no," the snake shook his head, "I have trained this body to the point where the first stage of the Sharingan is my default mode. I actually have to expend chakra now to suppress it, when I need to look normal." Madara looked impressed in spite of himself. "So why are you here, Orochimaru?" the first Uchiha asked in false civility. "You have something I desire," the Sannin answered honestly, "and I am here to get it." "You plan to steal from me?" Madara's response was incredulous. "Not steal," the former ring bearer countered evenly, "it is knowledge that I want you to share, and I am prepared to offer something of value in return." The Akatsuki leader's eyes widened, and he indicated his former ally should continue. "You possess the one thing I want most in this world, the secret of immortality. It is the main reason I acquired this body." Madara blinked in amazement, and then his face turned dark. "I don't think so," the immortal countered, "aside from the fact you killed the last 2 members of my family, I don't need the companion." "You abandoned your family decades ago," Orochimaru disagreed smoothly, "and what companion? You want to rule the world, and I want to master every jutsu, and we both want to see the Konohagakure burn. Our goals are not incompatible." Madara shrugged to concede the point, but his face still looked deadly. "Nevertheless, there is nothing you can offer that is worth sharing that power. Not even my services," the body thief offered smugly. "Give me the secret to eternal life, and I shall happily rejoin the Akatsuki. Having an immortal ally with my knowledge and power could only benefit you." "As if I could trust you," Madara said coldly, his eyes boring through the snake, "but for the sake of the current operation, I will allow you to go in peace. Leave." Now that is a problem, Orochimaru was unperturbed. His eyes transformed, the tomo transforming into daggers pointing at his pupils. "If you will not share this power with me willingly, I will have to extract it from you, by any means necessary." The sound of birds filled the room, and the whites of Madara's eyes turned jet black. Salamander and Black Ant tumbled free from the attack. Salamander's compartment opened when it hit the side of the valley, spilling out Temari, Shikamaru, and Kamatari. After Ant stopped rolling, his doors were quickly pushed open from the inside, and Ino extracted herself. Expansion Jutsu. Roaring with rage, Choji grew until he was roughly the same size as the demon. He charged forward, body slamming Shukaku into the wall, knocking the sand monster away from Kankuro. At the same time, Kamatari pragmatically began to send wind blades at the tanuki again. Shukaku sent more barbs of dust at Choji, who took a few hits but was able to shatter most of them with his enhanced strength. The one-tails struck out again, shaping his paw into a hammer, and knocked Akamaki into the battlements. As Choji pulled himself to his feet, he coughed once, and blood wet his lips. With the enlarged human temporarily disposed of, the demon fired gobs of sand at the weasel, willing to briefly lose control of the silicate to try to eliminate the small annoyance. The other three shinobi rushed over to the puppet wielder. As they approached, Shikamaru recognized the remains of Crow, shattered into 1,000 pieces. The two women knelt over the sand jonin, and despite her training, Ino almost vomited. Kankuro's torso and limbs were riddled with dust-covered stab wounds, leaking blood across his uniform, staining the black material red. Most of the makeup on the right side of his face had been scoured away, and the skin underneath was scratched and bleeding. The medic swallowed her bile, and started to try to heal him. But the damage was too great. Ino recognized that even if she had Tsunade, Shizune, and Sakura with her, they still might not be enough. Hey, Kankuro coughed hollowly, just like I always expected. He gasped again, and then stopped breathing. Ino turned her attention to his heart and lungs, but the medical jutsu was not up to the task. She looked over at her friend with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Temari, Ino said sadly, reaching up to close Kankuro's eyes. The Kazekige's sister did no respond. Her eyes were red and wet, but they were filled with a hateful gaze. She stood slowly, deliberately, and spread her fan to its widest configuration. She turned back toward Shima with murderous intent. Naruto suddenly gasped as the warmth in his chest grew, and spread to the rest of his body. He felt like he's somewhere in between the 2 and 3 tails states in terms of strength, speed, and physical energy, except his body was not tearing itself apart, and he was not filled with the fox's hatred and aggression. He could now sense the drugs keeping him sedated, as well as the jutsu attacking the recently expired seal. And on top of that, he had more chakra than he had ever felt before, more than in the 4 tails form. Naruto wanted to call out to the fox, and demand she explain, but he understood that the demoness was gone. The idea that she had given up her existence to escape Madara both saddened and angered him. You stupid fuzzball, he exhaled harshly, I promise you, I'll kill that guy for you. Naruto took a deep breath and turned his attention outwards. The intravenous drip in Naruto's left arm exploded free in a burst of lightning chakra. The scientist and her assistants stared at it dumbly, too surprised and confused to react. The captured Chunan's eyes snapped open, and he flexed his newly empowered muscles, snapping the restraints. As Uzumaki sat up, one of the underlings finally recovered enough to produce a kunai and stab at the teen. Naruto caught the older shinobi's arm, and tossed him easily into the wall with a sickening thump. As the 3 remaining subordinates attacked, Naruto raised his hand, summoning Kitsune with a thought. He parried the first 2 strikes, and then killed or disabled the closest attacker with a ringing blow to the side of his head. The remaining 2 researcher ninjas fell in rapid succession, and he turned to their mistress. The Akatsuki's expert was cowering in the corner, her eyes wide with terror. Please, don't kill me, she begged, I'm not a ninja, I just study chakra and jutsu. He studied her dubiously, but finally lowered his staff blade. Where is Madara Uchiha? He demanded. What? The founder of the Uchiha clan. But he died 80-some years ago, she stammered nervously, thinking he had been driven mad. He was here with me earlier, Naruto didn't buy her protests, tell me where he is. That's impossible, she argued, my team and I have been with you the whole time. The only other people who have been in this room with you were Zetsu and Tobi. Naruto believed her desperation, and turned to leave. He grabbed a lab coat hanging near the door, deciding it was slightly better than running around in his swimsuit. Then he looked back at her, deadly serious. Run, he suggested, this place won't be here much longer. She nodded vigorously, as he exited the lab. But as soon as the door was closed, she grabbed her phone and punched in Tobi's number. Please answer, she begged, her dread lightening to mere worry. The demon turtle loomed over them, blocking much of the light with its bulk. The three tails opened its mouth slowly, and disgorged a small pond's worth of brackish water at the shinobi. Though they managed to avoid getting hit, the smell was sickening. Kiba and Sasum were both put off balance by the stench and landed roughly. Shino and Lee were already reacting as those two recovered, but Kaidi beat them all. Reitan, least resistance strike, the Mist Hunter intoned, sending a powerful lightning attack towards the Terrapin, through the water. The monster shuddered slightly when the voltage coursed through its body, but it turned to attack the Mizukage's daughter with another burst of putrid liquid. Before it could open its mouth, Rock Lee bounded up the demon's shell, and jabbed his now assembled staff into the creature's eye. Even though it was not injured, the turtle roared and reared back in pain. It swung its head towards the wall, and the taijutsu expert had to drop back to the ground to avoid being crushed. Shino completed his jutsu, and his swarm covered the face of the Bayu, hiding its eyes and bleeding off its chakra. But even in its current, limited state, the three tails' energy reserves far outstripped any normal human, and the insects quickly fell away, bloated with chakra. The beast looked at Aberraim blandly, and shot out the deluge that Lee had delayed. Caught dead center in the cone of water, it appeared Shino would be unable to fully dodge the breath weapon. Kaiten, Abyssal Flare Jutsu. Kiba shouted, bracing against Akamaru as the column of purple hellfire erupted from his palm. The flames boiled away the water an instant before it engulfed the bug user. Unfortunately, the advanced technique left the young dog trainer physically drained and with minor burns on his right hand. Both Shino and the turtle turned their attention to Inuzuka, but before the demon could finish its movement, more than a dozen threads fired out, binding its head to its right leg. Sasum's action bought her teammates the time they needed. Kiba swallowed a food pill while Shino activated a healing technique to fix his teammate's hand. Sure, I can pull that move off while fighting a demon, but not during a test, Kiba grumbled in self-recrimination. Do not jinx it, Shino admonished, we may well need you to do that again before this fight is done. As if to illustrate his point, the demon pulled again, and this time snapped the chakra-laced cords that had been limiting its movement. At almost the same time, two of its tails lashed at Kaidi, who had been trying to get behind the demon. The mist kunoiki flipped back, but nearly clipped the wall of the canyon, and was forced to duck clumsily under the next tail strike the demon aimed for her. Though off balance, this also caused her to realize something. Lee, she shouted for his attention, narrowly avoiding the flailing extensions, the demon can't see me back here behind its shell. That means there must be someone else guiding its actions. Find him. The taijutsu expert nodded, and moved away from the leg he had been pounding on, unacknowledged by the massive monster. Mangekyo Sharingan met Shinin Sharingan, and both shinobi were apprehensive yet unflinching. Orochimaru had circled around the table, but now the opposed traitors simply stood there, staring at each other. The Chidori still chatted around the invader's left hand, while Madara appeared unarmed. Well, the serpent in the stolen body asked, growing slightly impatient. You want me to use Susanoo on you, Madara explained, and tempting though it is, I've decided not to fall for your little trap. Whatever do you mean? The Sanin's innocent protest rang false on both of their ears. Itachi already reported that Sasuke has a way to reverse Tsukuyomi back on the user, the original Uchiha answered, and you want to try to copy Susanoo, you are hoping that you can use my great-grandson's technique to escape. But I do not intend to give you any clues as to how to advance Sasuke's Sharingan further. As usual, Orochimaru shrugged, and brought up his hand, proclaiming, Lightning Coils Jutsu. The purple chakra left Orochimaru's hand, flying at Madara in the form of 3 electric snakes. Madara watched the art with interest, right up to the moment before they would have struck him. Then the immortal struck the table beside him, flipping it into the path of the attack, and dropping the guard's body unceremoniously to the floor. The lightning snakes burned through the thick oak top of the table, but by that point Madara was almost behind Orochimaru. He launched an elbow at Sasuke's chin, but the body thief dropped under the strike, and spun into a kick at Madara's right knee. The first Uchiha stepped over the attack and attempted to stomp on Orochimaru's ankle. The younger shinobi withdrew his leg and then thrust it back out in a snap kick at the immortal's chest. Madara simply stepped back out of range. Tobi's phone suddenly rang, and the distraction nearly let Orochimaru land a punch aimed at Madara's solar plexus. The Akatsuki founder turned away from the attack as his cell rang a second time. Though he was itching to take the call, expecting news of the rescue team's destruction, he also knew that if he did not give Orochimaru his full attention, it could cost him the battle, and more. For a few minutes more the two master warriors exchanged taijutsu attacks. Because of the shared Kekkei Genkai, each could anticipate the other's moves. When combined with each ninja's incredible speed, this meant that neither one of them could land a blow. Finally Madara stepped away, appraising the Sannin frankly. You control Sasuke's Sharingan well, he admitted. It is obvious this battle will not be decided with unarmed combat. But it is decided. Amaterasu. Black fire erupted from both of Madara's eyes and swept towards Orochimaru. Naruto entered another hallway encountering another 5 guards. On the floor below, he had killed or disabled every Akatsuki recruit who had attacked him without breaking a sweat or taking a scratch, though his lab coat was now thoroughly spattered with blood. Growing more curious about his new power with each passing minute, Naruto decided to test his limits, even as most of the former bandits charged. Without a word or motion, Naruto spawned a single shadow clone. He held his hand up and again his silver chakra began to twist and spin above it. The clone drew the Rasengan out into a flat disc almost 6 feet in diameter. Though he recognized he could not have done this without the duplicate, Naruto was amazed by how simply he formed one of his ultimate attacks with only one copy, and without hurting himself. Fuyuten, Raisin Shuriken. The two Uzumakis roared in unison. The throwing star-shaped chakra flew down the corridor, bisecting the first 4 warriors, before it struck its target, the soldier at the end of the hall who had been crafting a ninjutsu. The wind chakra engulfed him, cutting his body to shreds in an instant. Mildly surprised by how perfectly the attack had worked, Naruto forced his attention back to the task of escaping. He quickly checked each of the rooms, but they consisted of nothing more than empty barracks and a broom closet. No windows on this level either, the Chunin noted, and then took another deep breath. And no scent of fresh air. I must still be underground. So I have to keep heading up. Shifting Kitsune's scabbard, which he was having trouble getting into a comfortable position over the too large coat, Naruto sprinted to the stairs and headed up. He noticed more soldiers on the next floor, but decided to sneak past them, and conserve his chakra. He still had a promise to keep to an old friend. He continued up, until he reached the top of the stairwell. This portal was locked, and both the door and its frame were heavily reinforced. Naruto thrust a Rasengan into the handle, but even after he had eaten through, the remaining deadbolts kept the barrier in place. Fine, the teen seemed more amused than upset by the challenge. I'll just have to try something else. Naruto cupped his hands, as if holding a soccer ball, and a larger than normal Rasengan formed between them. He began to slow spread his palms, pulling his fingers back, and increasing the size of the spiraling sphere. Once it was slightly larger than he was tall, he dove forward, slamming it into the door. The great ball attack tore through the door, leaving behind only the corners intact, hanging pitifully off the remains of the bolts. He stepped through, expecting to find himself outside, but instead there was just another hall, no different than any of the others. And this hall, also like the others, held Akatsuki warriors. But this trio was special. Naruto could tell that, unlike the retrained bandits he had fought below, these were fully qualified shinobi. They also wore unique outfits, a shinobi shozaku with low-hanging sleeves, loose leggings and a pointed hat that gave the uniforms more than a passing resemblance to a Shinto priest's robes. Their faces were covered by modified ninja hoods. These had built-in mirrored goggles that concealed their eyes as well. About all Uzumaki could tell about them with any kind of certainty was their height, and that one of his 3 opponents was a woman. Each also held a Naginator, with blades facing him. Sorry, I don't have time to play, the Leaf Chunin told them, creating another copy, and shouting, Fuyuten, Raisin Shuriken. But before his Ogi could reach them, the front 2 warriors released their own techniques, also without hand signals. Energy Net. Granite Wall. The first defensive jutsu, a mesh of green lightning, caught wind-throwing star, breaking off chunks of it. The remains of the Raisin Shuriken struck the stone barrier that had appeared in front of the trio. It did not have enough power to slice through, and instead engulfed the granite, destroying most of it. The remains of the wall faded away a few seconds later, leaving him facing the 3 warriors again. Who are you guys? Naruto asked, impressed in spite of himself. We are the Acolytes of Pain, the man in the back answered, his most trusted bodyguards and spies. Well, good luck fighting in here with those polearms, Naruto smirked, as he drew Kitsune. But the ninja who had spoken leaned his curved spear into his left elbow and began to sign. Ninja Arts, Arena of Destiny, he announced as the blonde teen started to step forward. Instantly, the hall began to grow wider and longer. The ceiling was replaced by an empty sky, and the dark gray stones of the walls and floor became a light brown sandstone. Pain's soldiers spread out, still keeping their weapons trained on him. Remember, we mustn't kill him, the female reminded her colleagues. Lord Pain values the fox above our mere lives. Too bad for your boss, the QB is gone, Naruto said, his tone mocking, but also slightly saddened. As he put aside his emotions and turned his attention back to them, Naruto was gripped by an unfamiliar sensation of wrongness. It took him a few seconds to understand what it was, and when he did, he almost tentatively laced his fingers together around the staff blade's hilt. Release, Naruto said questioningly. To his great surprise, the arena around him vanished, returning him to the original hallway. Except it was still 4 times the width and 3 times the length and height it had been previously. Naruto frowned, disappointment covering his surprise at even a partial success. The first acolyte charged forward, bringing his Naginator down in an overhand strike. Naruto blocked the attack easily, and tried unsuccessfully to remove the rest of the illusion. Wait, if you can swing that around like that, the room must really be bigger. Naruto realized the unnatural feeling was gone even as he said that. The genjutsu is just to keep your opponents off balance while you create a larger space in which to fight. Naruto whistled, impressed that the masked man could combine such a powerful ninjutsu and a genjutsu into a single art. But he did not remain awestruck for long. Sorry, really I don't have time to deal with you now. Uzumaki slid past the 2 warriors attacking him, appearing instantly next to the ninja maintaining the spatial jutsu. As he slashed upwards with Kitsune, the wind chakra blade appeared, and he carved through the Akatsuki warrior's weapon and deep into his chest. Fast, the other male soldier broke his prior silence as his comrade's body dropped to the floor, returning the hall to its original size. Too fast, the female noted, lowering her blade. Instead she quickly launched a dozen hand seals before stating, Dual Arts, Eye of Thunder Jutsu. With the sound of a roaring storm, the sphere of frigid water with a core of lightning raced down the hall at the Chunin. Naruto batted the orb away with Kitsune, but it shattered. Most of the water was knocked away, but more than a few drops struck him, freezing instantly. The electricity had no effect, as always Kitsune absorbed it without complaint. You can use 2 opposing elements in a single jutsu. Naruto demanded, incredulously. How can you stop Lord Pain's dual arts with a metal pipe? She countered, worriedly. Stop, the male fighter told his teammate, dropping his weapon, we surrender. State your terms. Terms. The blonde blinked in confusion, trying to switch mental gears. Your requirements to spare our lives, the acolyte elaborated. Well, I guess I need some information, Naruto frowned in thought, rubbing the back of his head. Then ask your questions. I need to get out of here. What's the quickest way out? The only entrance is back down on the ground floor, on the western wall, the concealed shinobi said simply. Great. Uzumaki brightened briefly, and then he grimaced again, then where is Madara Uchiha? And don't give me that line about him being dead. Of course Madara Uchiha lives. He is Lord Pain's strongest ally, and our ultimate foe. But as to his current location, we do not know that. Despite the inference of your inquiry, to the best of my knowledge he is not in this base, nor has he been recently. Darn it, Naruto grumbled. After a few seconds of consideration, he asked, wait, how can Madara be Pain's buddy but your enemy? Don't you serve Pain? We live to obey Lord Pain, they both said in unison, and then the male figure answered, though they are allies, Lord Pain does not trust Madara. Thus we have been trained to fight the Sharingan. Good to know, he smirked at them. Then he raised Kitsune again. You would betray our agreement by slaying us. The female said sharply. No, but I don't trust you not to attack again when my back is turned, he told them, stepping backwards towards the door opposite his point of entry. The woman bristled at the insult, but the man just raised his hand, both to settle her and to reassure Naruto. Once there was enough distance between them, the leaf shinobi darted away. Why did you do that? The female acolyte asked as Naruto ran off. He is more powerful than any two of our master's paths, he answered, retrieving his weapon. We stood no chance. And the importance of reporting the situation here to Lord Payne far outweighs the cost in information and personal dishonor. She nodded, unhappy yet unable to disagree. Get away from me, the woman complained, jumping back as Lee jabbed his staff at her torso. The Akatsuki agent was in her mid-20s, and wore a thin, tight yukata with the same black with red clouds pattern used in the ring's infamous cloaks. Her build was lean and long. She was taller than any of her opponents, but appeared to weigh less than any of the men, and possibly the slightly shorter but much more voluptuous Kaidi. Her skin was a deep chestnut tone, and her violet hair hung to the mid of her back. The demon's controller watched Lee angrily with her wide, yellow eyes. And curiously, she wore no headband that the rescuers could see. After a few minutes of searching, Lee had found the kunoichi wedged into a crevice, watching the battle. With a few powerful strikes to the stones around her, he had forced her out into the open. Fight like a ninja, she demanded. She threw a pair of kunai at Lee with each hand, careful not to disturb the chain wrapped repeatedly around her right wrist, which kept a silver amulet pressed tightly to the underside of her forearm. Once the knives were away, she quickly signed, creating a series of fire darts, which she aimed for Guy's apprentice. Lee knocked some of the steel and flame missiles away with his weapon, and dodged the others. He charged in again, swinging his staff at her waist. She stepped back neatly, continuing to glare at him. I am fighting like a ninja, he insisted, grimacing back at her. No, you're not, she argued, tossing more knives at him. You have used no ranged attacks, no ninjutsu, and no genjutsu. You just keep swiping at me with that stick, like some common soldier. Bad move, Kiba commented, as he dodged a tail that whipped at him. With Lee distracting the turtle's master, it was easier to avoid the demon by moving to its back half. But that had not stopped the monster from viciously attacking anyone it could see, nor did it make it any easier for the four humans and the dog to hurt or impede the colossal amphibian. Lee's face turned bright red with rage. I am more of a ninja than a traitor like you could ever hope to be, he countered angrily. He spun his staff around, and in the process caught his leg warmers, with the remaining weights, on the end of the pole. He brought it down, hurtling the masses at the ring candidate. And he followed close behind, much quicker than he had been seconds before. She ducked under the first weight, but was clipped by the second. When Lee reached her, she drew two kunai and blocked his staff, but was forced back by his furious strength. The taijutsu expert snapped his staff apart, splitting it into two nunchakus. He swung at her from both sides, causing her annoyance to grow, even as she continued to stop his attacks. The three tails caught Kaidi in one of its tails, and began to crush her even as it moved to dash her up against the wall of the ravine. Akamaru jumped up, and bit hard into the extension, causing the demon to release the hidden mist kunoichi. Kiba caught her in mid-air, and set her down on her feet as they landed. I'm okay, thanks, she panted before he could ask, and they were both forced to dive away as the turtle began to hammer blindly at the ground behind him with the three legendary appendages. On the other side, Shino had managed to rouse his chakra-drunken insects. The bugs had digested the demon's energy, and were able to send part of it back to their master. In turn, Shino used the chakra to power the constant stream of low-level fire jutsu to keep the monster's attention on him. But his combination of draining and attacking was still only a minor annoyance to the Bayu. Are you almost done? Shino asked, a strain in his calm voice. Sasam darted back and forth under the turtle, barely avoiding its tree trunk-like legs. Just a little longer, she panted back, sorry. Kaiten, grasping Inferno Jutsu, was the insect trainer's only response. Even filtered by his tiny allies, the Three Tails chakra pained him to use. A small part of his mind wondered if Naruto felt like this. Shino's hands were wrapped in fire, and the flames expanded until the chakra hands were 10 times the size of Aberrame's natural appendages. He grabbed either side of the Terrapin's head, forcing it just far enough to the side that its next stream of water missed both Shino and the temporarily exposed Sasam. The turtle pushed back, its water chakra surging around it in a pure form that destroyed the human's jutsu. It turned its head back towards Shino, spreading its jaws wide, its rank breath washing over the leaf warrior as it built up its next load of spittle. Amaterasu erupted from Sasuke's left eye, but it was no match for Madara's assault. However, the opposition bought Orochimaru enough time to complete his counter-attack. Hyoten, Ice Prison Jutsu, the serpent intoned, keeping his black fire trained on Madara and slowly backing away as the stronger Uchiha's blaze began to overwhelm his. What are you going to do? The Sannin taunted, as the frost crept up Madara's legs. You could destroy my jutsu with your Amaterasu, except you would have to look away from me. But once you are trapped, I can just move out of eyeshot. Are you sure you don't want to just give me the secret of your immortality? The founder of the Akatsuki whispered something, unheard over the roar of the flames and the crackle of the ice. What was that? Orochimaru asked as he took another step back. But Madara did not need to respond. His Amaterasu suddenly stopped, but before Orochimaru's flames could reach him, the air in between them began to spiral inwards. Sasuke's power was sucked in, and his body was drawn off balance. The frozen water imprisoning the first Uchiha also cracked and broke away. After the rupture finally closed, Orochimaru was able to lift his stolen head again. Madara was standing over him with a mild smirk. I said, Kamui, the Sharingan master answered. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.